Ladies and gentlemen, what's going on? Welcome to the UK Steeler Nation original, the Pitt Pod. Now, with it being a brand new idea, I wanted just to run down what exactly the podcast is going to be all about. You can probably tell from the title, it's going to surround Pittsburgh, but it's going to be all about the Pittsburgh Steelers primarily, but I will also go into a little bit of detail about everything else that's got to do with the city, and of course the Pittsburgh Penguins, the Pittsburgh Pirates, and the Pittsburgh Panthers of the NCAA. With it being the first episode, I thought I'd give you a little introduction about what I'm all about and why I chose the Pittsburgh Steelers. So, I currently live in Scotland at the moment. I'm 19 years of age and I started following the Pittsburgh Steelers in 2014. I decided I was going to go in 2015 to the International Series when it came the next year. So, I thought I better get established with my knowledge of the NFL. So, I went onto the Nike website and I looked at all these different jerseys of different teams, and I saw the Tom Brady's of New England and I saw the Andrew Lucks of the Indianapolis Colts. But when I looked up the Pittsburgh Steelers, I was drawn by the black and yellow. I was also drawn by, of course, Ben Roethlisberger. And when I looked up his highlights on YouTube, I saw an enigma, somebody that as a quarterback you don't see very often. He was bigger built, he was stocky, he could not only pass in the pocket and make huge plays with his arm, but he could also make plays with his legs as well as shaking off offensive opponents. So I just thought he was a really different quarterback, and it was somebody else to root for, It was something out of the box and somebody you could probably more relate with. And that was really the real reasoning behind the Pittsburgh Steelers. And it was at that point that I didn't know that the Pittsburgh Steelers were 6-time Super Bowl champions, making them the most successful franchise of all time. Regardless, I chose the team, and I'm willing to stay with the team. I absolutely love the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I'm not ashamed to say we're the 6-time Super Bowl champions. We're the best franchise ever, so it's a happy middle. But there's many other things I love about Pittsburgh. For example, the food. I was drawn by Man vs. Food with the Primanti Bros when he did the episode in Pittsburgh. So that's another thing that I love about Pittsburgh: the food and the culture. I like how there's a lot of Eastern European culture in Pittsburgh as well. I like the YouTube channels, for example. Urinating Tree comes to mind, who's kind of like a parody account, and Days of Our Steelers is kind of the best thing on the internet at the moment. You've also got the Pittsburgh Dad, who is absolutely phenomenal at what he does. And then I like the traditions we have. When I was also making my decision, it said that we were the second or third best followed team in the National Football League, so that's something else to boast about. And of course, we've got Myron Cope's Terrible Towel, which is probably my favourite item of Pittsburgh Steelers folklore. But with that being said, that's really my point of view on the Pittsburgh Steelers come through. But in reference to other teams, I do not support the other Pittsburgh teams, unfortunately. Now, there's a reason behind that. For example, the Boston Red Sox. I went to Boston in February. That was the first ever time I'd been to a baseball stadium, and I went to see Fenway Park. So that's why I chose the Boston Red Sox for baseball. My first ever ice hockey game was the Chicago Blackhawks, so I support the Chicago Blackhawks. And so yeah, that's really the reasoning behind those two teams, but I will support them nonetheless as part of this podcast, because I really want to get more involved with the other sports, not just American football, and I think this is a great way to do it. And I've also always had a passion for podcasting, and it's something I've always wanted to do, so I'm really happy that I've got this opportunity, and it's great to be able to broadcast it on the Steeler Nation UK website, as well as the Facebook page. So yeah, that's really the opening covered. That's everything to do with me, and the introduction, and what I do, and all the boring stuff. So let's just get straight into it. We're going to be doing reviews and previews of the game that's past and the game that's upcoming every single week for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So what better way to start than with the Steelers versus the Jags? Now, this game was absolutely unreal. I don't know where to start with it. I will start with the fact that we won. That's an absolutely fantastic thing that we won. Now, of course, it has to be said that Big Ben didn't play very well at all. Regardless, he pulled the win out for us, and he actually scored the game-winning rushing touchdown. But in the game, he was 50%, 27 of 47 passes he completed for 314 yards and 2 touchdowns. Of course, he had the rushing touchdown to add to those 2 passing touchdowns. But there was a real problem with the interceptions. Early in he only had 11 plays in the first half, 11 total plays in the first half. Big Ben gave the ball away 3 times. Jalen Ramsey was looking like the best cornerback in the league, which I really do respect Jalen Ramsey, and I do think that he is probably up there at least in the top 3 cornerbacks in the league. But Big Ben, we know he didn't play very well. But this is the thing I love with Ben as well. I forgot to say it earlier on, that when he gets intercepted or things aren't going his way, he's not afraid to continue to do it badly. I know that sounds bad, I know it's a negative, but he doesn't bend. He just continues to play the way he plays, and that's something I really love about him. I love the audacity to go out there and continue to do his best every single play, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, but he played his way and he didn't submit to defeat. Now, on the other hand, at quarterback in position, you have for the Jacksonville Jaguars, Blake Bortles, who is, let's just say, one of the worst quarterbacks of this season, and I don't know how, because I really was rooting for him last year. He was actually pretty good, and I think if they let him throw the ball a bit more in the conference championship against the Patriots, they could have went to the Super Bowl. Regardless, they didn't, and in this game, he was 10 for 18 for 104 yards. That's it, 104 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. To have 10 plays, and that's 10 yards a play if you calculate it, regardless, he is one of those dink and dunk passers, little to no success there, and the defense, even though there's a lot of missed tackles during the first half, really shored things up and made things a lot better, but I'll touch on that a little bit later. As for rushing, you've got Leonard Fournette, who basically carried the Jacksonville Jaguars to the lead. He had 28 carries for 95 yards and a touchdown. Now, 28 carries is a whole lot of carries, and that's a lot of pressure on him, simply because Blake Bortles can't ball out. But Fournette is an absolute unreal talent. Last year when they played us, when he was waving on to Mike Mitchell to come and tackle him, I thought that was absolutely amazing. It was really, really cool to see, and I'm a big fan of Leonard Fournette. For the Steelers, on the other hand, we had James Conner, who has been the outbreak star of the year. I really do love this guy. He's got a great story, being a cancer survivor, coming from Pittsburgh Panthers University. He's a really cool guy. He does a lot for the city. He does a lot for the Steelers, and he's played absolutely immensely thus far. I'll touch on that a little bit later with the Le'Veon Bell debate. Yes, I'm bringing it up. I don't care. But he had 9 carries in the game for 25 yards. Now, a guy that's this on form, and when you've got Ben Roethlisberger throwing 3 interceptions, you really want a guy who can take the pressure off him, and James Conner is exactly that. He can be that guy. But unfortunately, Mike Tomlin decided not to play him effectively with the Russian side of things, but he did get a few catches in the outfield, and of course he did miss a couple that a lot of people were saying Le'Veon Bell could have catched, yada yada yada, but Le'Veon Bell's not here, James Conner is, so let's just be thankful for that. In terms of receiving, of course, the Jacksonville Jaguars with 104 passing yards don't have anybody notable to speak of, but we had, as always, Antonio Brown, who had 5 catches for 117 yards and 1 touchdown in the game. Best wide receiver in the league. Do I need to say much more? Juju Smith-Schuster, 8 catches for 104 yards, and I've seen some people in the comment section saying that he didn't do enough to make big plays in the big moments of the game, but that's totally up to your beliefs, but Juju Smith-Schuster has been one of our best players for the past year and a half or so, and I think he's a really, really, really great player. To conclude from the offense, we need to bolster that run game. We need a lot more carries for James Conner. There's definitely been accuracy issues with Big Ben Roethlisberger, but he managed to kind of sort those things come the second half, and that came better. And as I say, the 11 plays in the first half is just simply unacceptable. On defense, however, we had a lot of missed tackles. Let's not forget that. Let's not push that to the side because we had a good win at the end of the day. We stole the victory from Jacksonville in Jacksonville. Let's just touch on slightly the missed tackling. Now, there was a lot of open field tackles, a lot of misses. However, we have Vince Williams coming in at 10 total tackles. He has been an absolute star from the linebacker position. I know he gets a lot of criticism at times, but he reps the Steelers all the way to the grave, and he's a really, really great defender, and I'm really happy he's on our team. He was excellent against the Panthers on Thursday night last week. Then you also have Javon Hargrave. Now, Stephon Tuitt was out injured, so we needed somebody to step up in the line of scrimmage, and Javon Hargrave did exactly that. He garnered a 91.0 game grade. That's behind Aaron Donald of the LA Rams. He had 4 tackles and 2 sacks. And he just looked absolutely dominant through there. He was just unstoppable, and rightly so for the 91 game grade. He was absolutely fantastic. Another few positives for the defense, even despite the missed tackles. We forced 9 total punts, which is absolutely fantastic. That's 9 times we got the ball back, and we forced them to take 3 field goals, which Josh Lambo, who's a great kicker, he connected on all 3 of those. So we're stopping them at least before getting into the red zone, which is another great positive. Final thought for the Pittsburgh Steelers in this game: punting. Jordan Berry has been a guy who's been widely criticised, and by myself too. I actually really did like Jordan Berry coming into this season, but he had been horrendous so far. But he had a total of 6 punts for 306 yards, which averages 51 yards a punt, and that is his best average all season. Now that says a lot, because obviously you've got guys like Johnny Hecker who absolutely dominated on Monday night against the Chiefs, but you still have an issue with Jordan Berry at times, but he's really starting to pick up his game, and hopefully he finds his grind again, because punters have lives too, for the brand matters, and we want our special teams to be the most important part of our game. That's where Roosevelt Nix garners all of his attention, and he's a really, really great special teamer too. Moving on to the MVP debate, and another subject of total debate, is Ben Roethlisberger the MVP of the season? For the Pittsburgh Steelers, he might well be, yes. Is he the MVP of the National Football League? In my opinion, no, and I am one of the biggest Ben Roethlisberger supporters. People were saying for him to be benched in the last game for Joshua Dobbs. I thought that was an absolutely ridiculous statement, but regardless, let's talk about his actual stats for the season. So he's got 3,202 yards passing this season, which is 4th in the NFL. He has 23 passing touchdowns, which is tied 5th in the NFL, but he also has 10 interceptions, which is tied 4th. We are 7-2-1, and that's obviously absolutely excellent, but the fact of the matter is, when you have 10 interceptions and you only have 23 touchdowns, there are going to be several players that are playing better than you, and that's just a fact of the matter, unfortunately. Given that if he does bring us to the promised land, and for example, we win the majority of our games, perhaps even go unbeaten, definitely there's a case there to be made, but right now, he's definitely not the league leader for the MVP race. You've got another guy, arguably the best quarterback in the moment, Patrick Mahomes. He has got 3,628 yards on the season passing, which is 1st in the NFL, of course it is. He has 37 touchdowns, again, that's 1st. He has, as the same with Ben Roethlisberger, he's tied 4th with 10 interceptions, and he has led his team to an 8-2 win-loss record. Of course, they lost to the Chiefs on Monday night, but he scored 6 touchdowns in that game, and he looked phenomenal, even though he threw 3 silly interceptions again. But Patrick Mahomes probably is the league leader right now, not in my opinion, but he probably is in the grand scheme of things. Another pick, Drew Brees, which I think the league likes the idea of that. I think the league likes the idea of Drew Brees having a fairy tale season to end his career if he so wishes to do so with a Super Bowl win for the Saints. Another one that is, if that is to be how it goes. So far in the season, he's got 2,964 passing yards, which is 6th in the NFL. He has 25 touchdowns, which is 4th, and he only has 1 interception, which is the lowest in the NFL. I think it's 0.1% of the passes he's made on the season, and he's 9-1. I do think the Saints are the most complete team in the league this season, and I think they might even go unbeaten for the rest of the way. However, my pick for MVP of the season is none other than running back Todd Gurley. Now, before coming into the season, I thought Le'Veon Bell was the best back in the league, hands down. Todd Gurley has come out and absolutely destroyed that thought with 17 touchdowns of his own. That's the most in the NFL. He has 1,484 yards from scrimmage, which is once again 1st in the NFL. He has 13 rushing touchdowns, which is again 1st in the NFL. And he has 1,043 rushing yards, which is once again 1st in the NFL. He's a league leader as a running back. He leads the league in average per carry as well. He really is the best running back in the game right now, heads and shoulders above everybody else, and he's proven that he's worth every penny that he was paid in the offseason, and he really is a back for the ages. I do not think Gurley will win the MVP race, because it's all about quarterbacks in this day and age. So that's why there's so many rules to protect the quarterback, so it would be absolutely stupid for the NFL to go against that and give it to a running back, even though I think it might be deserved, especially if the Rams can at least get to the Super Bowl, which I think they will. I think, in my opinion, it's going to be a Pittsburgh Steelers-Rams Super Bowl, but we can leave that for a later debate if you guys want to talk about that later. But that's it for really this week and the MVP race. But now it's time to talk about a little thing that is going to cause a lot of controversy and has caused a lot of controversy anyways, is Le'Veon Bell's contract embargo. Now, it has been solved, sort of, but I'm going to really just rip through what the pundits are saying regarding Le'Veon Bell and where he is at this moment in time. So, at the start of the season, he was offered 1 year as a prove yourself franchise tag contract, which is estimated to be worth $14,544,000. Now, that's a lot of money. We can discuss that in just 2 seconds. He receives zero wage, however, because he didn't report the Steelers' deadline of 4 p.m. Eastern Time on November 13th. So he cannot play a game in the NFL this season, and he will also become a free agent at the end of the season, which was going to happen anyway. I think Adisa Bakari had a lot to do with the contract. I really do think that he had his hands in every single hole in that contract, and it perhaps didn't help Le'Veon Bell, but a lot of people are saying it did actually help Le'Veon Bell, and this was his plan all along. I think it was Maurice Jones-Drew saying that the Steelers made a mistake not signing him. Other people were saying that the Steelers players never had his back, and we're seeing a lot of the things that the coaches were saying, i.e., are you part of this team? Do you support this team? Does he really believe what we're all about? Is he really a Pittsburgh Steeler? All these kind of wild accusations. But I guess it is kind of true, because players should normally support each other, getting as much money as they can. We all know the NFL and the life of an NFL player is short in terms of their career, and it also sometimes limits their life with the CTE discussion, which I hopefully will touch on in later episodes of the podcast. So I do see their points, but I also can understand why they would be angry, and I also understand why us as Steeler fans are angry too. But there are some pros for Le'Veon Bell. First of all, he's abstaining from injury. That happened to Earl Thomas, who gave the middle finger to all the Seahawks staff, and he's basically fucked his career up pretty much. In terms of, people might not want to take that chance on him again. He's wanting big money, he never got it, and he was wanting big money guaranteed, he again never got it, and he probably won't get it when he returns from the injury either, because he is a bit of a liability, unfortunately, in spite of how good a player he is. It also presents a case of his having of pure physical fitness. A year out of the NFL is a longevity battle. That is a lot of time, and even though he might be rusty when he comes back to it, which happens quite a lot with players, he is still going to be in peak physical condition. Now, that doesn't guarantee he's not going to tear his ACL in week 1 of the 2019 season. However, he is going to be in peak physical condition because he knows he wants that big contract. As I say, he'll have less wear and tear, and he also receives the deal he'd like next year. And it's probably going to be from somebody like the New York Jets or the Indianapolis Colts. Now, if he goes to the New York Jets, his career's pretty much over, in my opinion, because that offensive line isn't going to be able to carry him. I don't think it's good enough yet to be able to put a guy like that on it, especially when it can't contain Sam Darnold. However, on the other hand, and the flip side you think of it, he might go to the Indianapolis Colts, who've got a huge salary cap. They've also got Andrew Luck, and they've got a great offensive line, who've struggled for years, but they're now shored that up. Quentin Nelson looks like an absolute beast. The cons of holding out for Le'Veon Bell is that James Conner makes him look expendable. You can't say he doesn't. Catching from the backfield, of course, sometimes that's a bit iffy with James Conner, but you cannot say that James Conner has not made Bell look expendable, because James Conner has filled in, he's played better, and he just looks like as good, if not a better running player, and he's also got a long career in the NFL. And you've also got no evidence of how good he is. Le'Veon Bell was probably one of the best running backs, should I say, in 2017. Is he the best running back in 2019? I don't think so. Todd Gurley is the best running back in 2019, in my opinion. Then it's James Conner. Then, obviously, you've got Alvin Kamara, who's probably ahead of James Conner. There's so many different competition in there. You need to be careful. Kareem Hunt below James Conner, for my opinion. Now, the pros for the Steelers are great. The Steelers saved $14.5 million for the impending 2019 free agents, which is absolutely phenomenal. To have that money sitting, waiting for the contracts, the big contracts of the big players that are going to be going possibly testing free agency is an absolutely fantastic idea, and I'm really pleased with that. And also, it gives us a chance to maybe pick somebody up in free agency, so there's always that option too. And as the stats show, Connor is performing better for a lot less money. Let's just take a look at some of the statistics from the first 10 games of the 2017 season for Le'Veon Bell and the first 10 games of the 2018 season for James Conner. For Bell, for scrimmage yards, you have 1,194. For James Conner, you have 1,207. For yards per touch of 2017, you have 4.2. For James Conner, 5.5. For touchdowns, you have 5 for Le'Veon Bell. And for touchdowns for James Conner, you have 11. Now, let's also take a little look at the season best touchdown compilation for Le'Veon Bell. In 2014 and 2017, he had 11 as a season high. And of course, James Conner has already got to that mark through 11 weeks in the NFL, so that's pretty ridiculous. And just to be able to save that money, as well as having a running back who can play that at that level, is absolutely fantastic, and I'm sure he's going to continue to play very, very well. Moving on from the Le'Veon Bell debate, I know it's taken up so much time, and let's focus on the wins rather than Le'Veon Bell, but it had to be said with this being the first episode of the podcast, and I'm glad we got it out of the way. Looking at the preview for the Steelers versus Broncos game, the Broncos are 4-6 in the season while we are 7-2-1. But there are a lot of things we need to do against and for them. Now, defensively, for the Broncos, they have Von Miller, who Mike Tomlin in his latest press conference described him as a scientist. Just the way he dials up plays and the way he can make use of the offensive line of the opposition team. I would agree with that. I think Von Miller is probably one of the best at the line of scrimmage compared to anyone in the league. Khalil Mack probably second behind him. But Von Miller is a great defensive talent, and to be able to stop him would be huge. But again, that's up to the offensive line. The offensive line has been great this season. I think they can continue to carry us to more victories as well, and give Ben some time, and he'll be able to punch the scores in. Again, another player who's gotten a lot of attention is Bradley Chubb. Bradley Chubb has had a really good season with 9 sacks in his rookie season. That's tied 9th for sack leaders. But he has, as another person that Mike Tomlin alluded to in his press conference, so he's another guy to watch out for. So really, stopping the pass rush is something we need to do, and if we can do that, I think we can take advantage of the Denver Broncos. Offensively, there's one guy on everybody's lips, Philip Lindsay, the guy from Colorado Buffaloes. He's somebody that I watched in college football quite a lot, and he's really underrated, but this year he's getting a lot more attention. He's got 670 total rushing yards and 5 rushing touchdowns this season, so he's a very pivotal piece to that offense, and he can be really dangerous. Now, of course, they're coming off a win against the Los Angeles Chargers, so he's somebody to watch out for, and I'm sure that if we can contain him at the line of scrimmage, we can once again get a W. The other guy we need to look out for is Case Keenum. Now, Case Keenum's had a really bad start to the season. He's been good at points, he's been bad at points. I don't think he throws a lot of interceptions. I don't think he's careless with the ball, and I think that if we can win the turnover battle, as ever, it's the most important part of the game. If we can win the turnover battle, we win the game. So we've got to force him into mistakes. We've got to have a good pass rush. We've got to have Bud Dupree, TJ Watt showing out, because if we don't have those two guys hot, then we're probably going to lose in terms of getting to the quarterback there. Again, altitude. Denver is so high up, the Mile High Stadium, it's an absolute nightmare to play in, or so I've heard. That again is going to be a major key factor, but the biggest of all things for us on offense is running the ball. We need to beat down that defense. We need to make sure that we're attacking the defense, so we're getting Von Miller tired. Give our offensive line some time to maneuver, and make sure that we actually pound the ball down their throat. That's the best way to win. It gives Ben Roethlisberger some breathing room, and I think that we should maybe even not half, but maybe 60-40 passing running. James Conner's a great talent. He can run the ball better than most people, so let's just give him the ball, see what he can do with it, and if he doesn't produce anything, then we continue to pass the ball, but we need to give him that opportunity, we need to let him shine. So that's that for the previews. Now it's time to go around the NFL and just round up absolutely everything that happened this weekend, and it has been a huge weekend for the action in the NFL. First of all, we're going to start with the Philadelphia Eagles, the defending Super Bowl champions. I was actually at Lincoln Financial Field about a month and a half ago for the Philadelphia Eagles versus Minnesota Vikings game, and boy were they bad. Regardless, we're going to forget about that. For me, their season's over. They were embarrassed, humbled, downtrodden, absolutely defeated by the New Orleans Saints, and it was just shocking, 48-7. That's never happened for a Super Bowl, an ex-Super Bowl champion. Absolutely torn apart. It was boys against men. On defense for the Eagles, they've got so many players missing, so many key players. They're down to their 6th and 7th rotational cornerbacks, so that's pretty much practice squad members, to give you an idea of that. That's absolutely ridiculous. They've got missing people on defensive line, they've got missing people at linebacker. It's just not looking good for them, really. It's really not a good look for the Eagles, and they look down and out. As the New Orleans Saints, as I said earlier, I think they're the most complete team in the league. At 9-1, I don't think anybody can stop them, really. They've got a great defense, and they've got an even better offense. They've got so many different options. Sean Payton's got loads of play calls, and Drew Brees looks like the MVP of the season, or at least one of them. The Saints, again, are going to be huge in this season. I think they might even go all the way, who knows, but I do think it'll be Steelers, but we will soon see, and we can leave that till a later date. Next up, we have Alex Smith for the Washington Redskins, 33 years to the day on Sunday that Joe Theismann broke his leg. He also broke his fibia and his tibia, and I think his bone was sticking out of his, perpetrating the skin. So, an absolute horrendous injury, and it was one of those moments when you watch it back, but you know, you got to feel for the guy. But does it give Colt McCoy a chance at quarterback? Certainly does. And with them facing the Dallas Cowboys next week, I don't like their chances. But I will say that they battled back, and they did fight really hard for Alex Smith when he was injured. But unfortunately, they lost 23-21 to the Texans, who are really hot at the moment. Moving on to AFC North, obviously, Steelers division, we have Baltimore Ravens winning 24-21 against the Bengals. Lamar Jackson got his first ever starter at the quarterback position, and he made Joe Flacco look like his bitch. He had 27 rushes for 117 yards, which is phenomenal amount. That's one less than Leonard Fournette in our game. Absolutely unreal. That's going to get him hurt at some point, 100%. You cannot run the quarterback 27 times. He also had 13 passes for 150 yards. He completed 13 of 19 passes. So he didn't look too bad. He didn't score any touchdowns, but he was very, very important in the game, and he did a lot of the rushing, a lot of the running, and he was a really, really good talent, and I think he did really well in his first start, and I think he'll get the start next week as well. But I do think they're going to get Joe Flacco in there somehow. They love Joe Flacco, and they're going to make sure that he's the quarterback at any means necessary, no matter how good they are. Moving on, Chicago Bears. They move ahead to the top of the NFC North. They were already there, but they're now a game and a half ahead of the Minnesota Vikings, who are second. There were 3 turnovers on each team there, and Eddie Jackson got another pick 6 in the game. An absolutely fantastic win, 25-20 over the Vikings. I really do think that the Vikings, I did think at the beginning of the season that they would be a really good contender, but they are struggling. They're struggling to find a run game. Kirk Cousins having to do a lot of the work. Sometimes he can't do the work. The offensive line struggling as well under that, especially in the Chicago Bears game. Khalil Mack and Akeem Hicks really got the best of the offensive line there. Finally, we have Monday night's game. The Los Angeles Rams defeating the Chiefs in the greatest regular season game I've ever seen. In my opinion, definitely the greatest regular season game I've seen live anyway, that's for sure. 54-51 to the Rams. Jared Goff was absolutely dynamite. He had 4 touchdowns for 413 yards, and he was 31 of 49, which isn't amazing accuracy, but he did a lot of good stuff on Monday night. Then you've got Patrick Mahomes, who I alluded to earlier, had 6 touchdowns, 478 yards, but he had 3 interceptions, which were totally pointless, and I think he gave away the game at certain points, especially in the end with the last 2 interceptions. I think they might have even been able to pull it off if he hadn't thrown those interceptions, but again, that's just something to watch out for. It's something to work on for the Chiefs, and I think they will bounce back definitely very easily. Sorry, this is the last of all. We have the Seattle Seahawks absolutely stealing a win in Seattle against the Green Bay Packers. Green Bay Packers season for me, is it over? You can never count out Aaron Rodgers, but I do think the Chicago Bears are going to run away with this NFC North, and I think the Packers have got another couple of losses in them. Aaron Jones is a great running back, he really is, but at times Mike McCarthy looks absolutely clueless as the head coach of the Green Bay Packers, and I think that if they don't continue to run the ball, they're never going to make much success. So he's going to be pivotal, as always Aaron Rodgers is, but I don't think that their season's got much left juice in it. I think that it could be over before it's begun. They're 4-5-1. I know it's not a bad record at all, but I don't see them getting in the wild card place, and I think with the Bears' schedule, which is pretty easy, you've got them facing the Detroit Lions tomorrow on Thanksgiving Thursday, I really do think that they are probably out of the race. But now it's time for my top 10 power rankings of the week. That's going to be a regular feature on the show. Number 1, Saints. Don't have to say much more. Number 2, Rams. They're 10-1 this season. They've got a fantastic record. Number 3, the Chiefs. Kansas City Chiefs, of course, 9-2. You can't count them out. They will be back. Don't forget that. The Steelers, you've got them at 7-2-1, who are number 4 in our rankings. Then I'm going to put in the Bears there. I just think I put the Bears number 5 because I don't think that they have the best quarterback in Mitchell Trubisky, and I know that obviously the other 4 teams are competing for the best quarterback, but I don't think that Mitchell Trubisky is good enough to be able to lead that team over the hump. I just think that he's very easily caught if it's not an easy option, and sometimes it isn't an easy option. They will get defeated. Moving ahead, we have the New England Patriots, who are 7-3. They obviously were on their bye week, so we don't have much to go on by that, but you can never count Tom Brady out. He's the greatest quarterback of all time. Deal with it. It's out there. That's my thoughts. If you want to fight me on Twitter, YouTube, whatever, you can do so. But Tom Brady is the greatest quarterback of all time. I'm a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, and that is my declaration. Number 7, the Texans, 7-3. Deshaun Watson, 2 interceptions in the last game against the Redskins. But I also think that they've got a fantastic team. They've got an absolutely excellent defense. And after a 0-3 start, to be 7-3 now is absolutely fantastic. Indianapolis Colts, number 8. This is going to get a lot of heat, but they are 5-5, and Andrew Luck looks absolutely supreme. The offensive line is absolutely fantastic again this year, or at least they're a lot better than they were last year anyway. They're probably the best offensive line in the league, probably contending with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Quentin Nelson, best guard in the league. I don't know, David Castro will have something to say about that, but the Colts are definitely up there. You've got the Dallas Cowboys in at 9. I think Leighton Vander Esch is an absolutely fantastic talent, the linebacker, in his rookie year, and I think he's going to put up a surge for the Defensive Player of the Year. Defensive Rookie of the Year, should I say. And then number 10, the Chargers, coming off that defeat against the Broncos. First real test, they lost at home. And, that's not a great look for the Chargers. So I think Phillip Rivers, with his 400 yards in that game, he can definitely come back, but that's where I'm putting them 10th. At the moment. So that's all for the power rankings. Now it's time to turn our attention to a different sport. So if you are here just for the Pittsburgh Steelers content, that's where we'll say goodbye. However, we're going to move on to the NHL and the Pittsburgh Penguins. Now, as I've said earlier, I'm not a Pittsburgh Penguins fan, I'm a Chicago Blackhawks fan. With that in mind, with us starting the podcast so late in the show, in the season, we are 19 games in already. The current record for the Penguins are 7-8-4, the 4 being overtime losses. They are bottom currently in the Metropolitan Division at 8th, but they are also 6 points from the top with the Blue Jackets, who have 2 games in hand above the Pittsburgh Penguins. So it could all work out, but right now there's a lot of problems. Now, why are they so bad? That's a really good question, to be honest with you. Defensively, they're all over the place. Let's just get it out there. Especially in goal, Matt Murray has pretty much zero confidence, and it looks like he has lost everything that made him such a great goalie during the championship years. He just looks like somebody who has kind of lost his confidence, and when you start to think that I can't not save the next shot, you're probably going to let it in, and that's exactly what's happened there with the Pittsburgh Penguins. So they made a change with the latest game against the Sabres, with Casey DeSmith going in goals. That poses the question as well, do you continue to play Matt Murray or do you bench? I'd say you bench him for the games that the Penguins are probably going to win. It gives him a little bit more breathing room and just to build up his confidence. And in this case, you've got to be honest with him. You've got to say, look, you're not playing well, Matt, but we're going to stick you in net for the games that we're not worried about sort of losing. I think we will win, and try and build your confidence up there. We're not stupid. We know you're not stupid. So we've just got to build together and try and get that confidence back. And I think that it's gonna work out in the end. But I know that Crosby said earlier we've found different ways to lose. Again, not a really good look for the Pittsburgh Penguins, but. Regardless, let's just go straight into the Sabres game. Now, the Pens took the lead with Brassard, then they recovered 1-1, 2-1 to Penguins, then it went 3-1 to Penguins, then it went 4-1 to Penguins. And as Crosby said, they are finding new ways to lose because they gave the game back. It came back to 4-4 with Casey Nelson scoring to make it 4-4, and then it went to overtime, and then Jack Eichel, the captain of the Sabres, who is a guy who's really, really invested into the franchise, he got the game-winning goal in overtime. As for in net, Casey DeSmith, 40 saves, which is 87.5%, 40 of 45 shots. It's not great, but it's an improvement from Matt Cassell. You've got a guy who's wanting to relish the opportunity, and I think defensively, if they can shore up the problems on defense, they might actually be able to recover their season before it's too late. But I don't think it is too late. I think there's still plenty of time. I just don't want to see these teams like the Blackhawks and the Pens go down the drain, because they've been such great teams for a long time, and they seem to be on the decline. The players that were once great, like Sidney Crosby, who is obviously he's still a fantastic player before you cut me off, and Patrick Kane, of course, who is another fantastic player, probably one of the best of all time, including as well Sidney. They seem to be losing it a little bit in terms of their teammates around them. Regardless, the next game for the Pens are against the Stars. They're hosting the 11-8-2 Dallas Stars at 12 tonight. Crosby is questionable to return. He was out for the past 2 games. But the Stars, as their record shows, aren't doing too great themselves. Their head coach, Jim Montgomery, said he's unhappy with the inconsistency in terms of their work ethic. And Jamie Benn also agreed and accepted the fault for their latest loss, which was the 6th win for the New York Rangers at Madison Square Garden, as they lost 2-1. I think that for them there was a lack of leadership in that game. There's not somebody they can get behind and follow and help to win, so I think that was another big problem for them. In other Pittsburgh news, we have the Pittsburgh Panthers. Now, I am not a college football buff. I don't know a whole lot about college football, but I've been getting into it this year. I was at the Temple University game against East Carolina Panthers. That was Pirates, sorry. That was my first ever game of collegiate football, so I guess they're sort of the team, but I'm going to start. I have started rooting for the Pittsburgh Panthers this year, and I've learned a lot about the greats that have been part of the Pittsburgh Panthers organization, and I know that hopefully next week I'm going to be detailing one of their careers. So look forward to that. But the Pittsburgh Panthers clinched the ACC Coastal Conference after a win over the Wake Forest outfit, 13-34. They were at Wake Forest, it is. Their conference record at the moment is 6-1. Their overall record is 7-4, and the next game comes against Miami Hurricanes. So a lot of big things happening right now for Pittsburgh. The Pittsburgh Panthers are seeded 24th in the national standings for the NCAA, but I think they will probably fall out of that. The 7-9 record isn't 7-4 record. Isn't exactly the greatest records to have, and I think there's a lot better teams out there, but it's a good thing to build on, and it's really good to see them winning the conference championship again. But that's it, folks. That's the episode. That's the first episode of the podcast. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. If you have, go to YouTube and you can subscribe and click the notifications. As well as that, you can follow me on Twitter and Facebook. They're both at the Pitt Pod. And you can also follow my personal account, which is at red_Scocks. But as for next week, I might have an interview with one of the Steeler Nation UK members. I also am planning to do a little bit about an in-depth review of a player's career of Pittsburgh Panthers. You might know him by the name of Larry Fitzgerald. As well as that, we'll be reviewing the Denver Broncos game and also previewing the Steelers' next game. So if you guys have enjoyed it, please leave a like. Also, please share on whatever social medias you do have, whatever you can. And hopefully you guys have enjoyed it. So that's all from me. Thank you very much for listening, and I'll see you guys next week.